Welcome to Girl Take the Lead, where each week we explore womanhood and leadership. And I'm your host, Yo Canny. Melissa Brunetti, GenX Certified SMGI Practitioner, trauma healing and mind body coach with Somatic Mindful Guided Imagery, and the Mind Your Own Karma, the Adoption Chronicles podcaster, joins us to talk about her journey to educate people about adoption trauma, the primal mother wound, and somatic mindful guided imagery, or SMGI. Her goal is to inspire people and remind us that we are only one decision away from a totally different life. I've had the pleasure of knowing Melissa over the past 3 years when we did Kathy Heller's podcast course together, and I've seen her pivot and grow. I'm so grateful for the love and support she's given me, delight in seeing our friendship grow, as well as with the other members of our dearest pod squad, Whitney, Rachel Blair, Rachel Brumberger, and Misha. We all did the course together and continue on the podcast and business and life journey together. I learned so much from each of you and appreciate each of you so very much. And I'll have the information about their podcasts in the show notes. With Melissa, we'll cover her journey and all she's learned along the way. Big stuff like the mother wound, generational trauma, somatic mindful guided imagery, and the importance of honoring and allowing our feelings. So good. Enjoy the listen. Here you go. Melissa, welcome to Girl
Hello.
Take the Lead.
Yay.
We are so excited to have you. I am so excited when a good friend comes on the show, and I kind of feel like that with you. So thank you so much
Yeah.
for coming.
Thanks for having me on.
Yeah. So let's start. Would you introduce yourself, please, to our listeners and viewers?
Yeah. So I'm Melissa Brunetti. I am 56 years old, and I, as you know, Yolanda, am the queen of pivoting. You've
She
known me
is.
for about 3 years now, and I've probably pivoted more in the last 3 years than I have my entire life. I was and still am a sonographer for over 3 decades, and I do that part-time. That's my money-making job. My passion job is I have a podcast. So I've had that for about 2.5 years. That started with a podcast kind of about authenticity because I jumped into podcasting without ever listening to a podcast and had no idea what I was going to talk about.
Like a lot of us.
And so I just knew I was supposed to do it. And I think the one thing I got out of that 12-week course that was worth all the money that she said was just start. Just start. And I have taken that with me through the last, 3 years, and it's really gotten me to where I am right now. So I did. I just started and started with kind of an authenticity, living your best life podcast. And I did that for like 26 episodes and ran out of things to say. And I'm like, well, now what am I going to do?
Mm-hmm.
And I was kind of at a point in my life where I had just taken care of a friend that had passed away. She had lived with me for the past year, and I had some time on my hands. And I was on Facebook and um, found an adoptee site, which I'm an adoptee, and I just never really thought to look that up or become a member of a site like that. And I thought, oh, this is going to be fun. So I joined that and quickly found out about adoption trauma, which I never really thought about for myself and never gave myself permission to think about because I had a good adoption and you're always told, to be grateful and how lucky you are and all those things. And it just really gave me permission to start exploring the wounds that I had.
Mm-hmm.
And I quickly became part of leadership on one of the platforms. And we used to do Zoom calls with private groups of adoptees. And I just remember this one man, he was probably in his late to mid 60s. And he said, I've had pain in my body ever since I can remember, since I was like 3 or 4 years old. And I don't know where it's coming from. And it just really tugged at my heart so much so that I wrote it down on a sticky note and I still have it on my office wall. And I was like, there's something else. I'm missing something. There's something I'm supposed to be doing to help. And literally 5 days later, I was talking to a friend who had gone through a pretty traumatizing event. And she said, did I tell you I did this somatic mindful guided imagery? And in 3 sessions, I cleared all that trauma from that. And I was like, what the heck is this? So she was telling me about it and just the light bulb. And again, just like I had that feeling about I need to do a podcast, it was like, I need to find out more about this. And
Mhm.
so I read everything I could get my hands on about it and just made that feeling grow even more. And so I ended up taking the course, and I'm a practitioner of somatic mindful guided imagery now, starting my business. And it's been my dream job, really. It's combined my medical background and my left brain thinking with the right brain and the mind body connection and the spirituality. And it's just been, like I said, my dream job, and also pretty profound in helping the adoptee community, which was what I really wanted to do in the first place. So
And you got a recent award, I think.
I did, from the
Toot your
Quality
own
Business
horn, girl.
Award. Yeah, I got Best Hypnotherapy in Turlock, California for 2024 from the Quality Business Awards recently, which was, a huge honor, especially after just starting this a year and a half ago. And then I recently got published in a magazine online, Canvas Rebel, kind of about my business journey there as well. So, yeah,
And
it's
we'll
really
have
taken
links to all
off.
that, you guys, in the show notes.
Yeah.
So, and I just want to make a point too that I listen to your podcast and I'm not adopted. Sometimes I wondered if I were.
You felt like
But, and you know what? It relates so much to anybody that has had trauma in their life or things going on. And I just want to thank you for doing that
Thank you.
and for
Thank you
the
for saying
service
that.
that you're doing for all of us, because I think it's sometimes we just bury this stuff so far down
Yeah.
and we don't notice it. And then, as you said, it might appear as a pain in our body or a question we're having over and over again. And we almost have to go back and revisit it and
Hmm.
to kind of
Definitely.
clear it out.
Yeah.
But what other discoveries have you made while you've been doing this?
Well, this has kind of been my platform, is to educate society on adoption, because, and this is where I want to ask your listeners to kind of be curious and have an open mind, because Disneyland umbrella over adoption isn't really um, how it goes. And we need to remember that adoption is building a family. And I think that's kind of where we start our narrative when we think of adoption. But really, it goes back to the breaking of a mother and child bond. And there's trauma there. It's rooted in trauma for the birth mother and the child. And we forget that as babies, we're really not blank slates. Science is really proving that now. And I mean, I would think that birth is traumatic enough for all of us, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But then to come through that out into the room and this world and what's happening and be taken from the security that you've known for 9 months, the voice that you've heard for 9 months, the person that you've shared blood and nutrition and hormones and, with, how much closer can you be
Mm-hmm.
to that person? So to be taken from that and placed away from that with strangers, and hopefully somebody who's holding you, who knows, you could be laying in a crib somewhere crying and nobody's, helping you. And as a baby, there is no fight or flight. The only thing that you have in that moment is surrender
Mm-hmm.
and acceptance to survive. So I think a lot of people don't think about that. And then they think, oh, well, we just plugged this baby into this new family and you don't remember. And
Yeah.
Everything's great.
Everybody's
But
going to
we
be happily
do
ever after.
remember, our bodies remember.
Hmm.
There's so many books, Gabor Mate, the body keeps the score. Even pre-verbal, pre-memory trauma gets stored in the body. And obviously we don't remember it. And so we don't deal with it. And it manifests in so many different ways, mentally, physically, health wise in our bodies. And just to get that validation when I went on that Facebook page, it's like, oh my gosh, I do that, and just to have that validation of, wow, even though I had a great adoption, I still have this wound that I need to look at.
Hmm.
So I just, want your listeners to have that open mind and kind of think about that. Not to mention, we were talking about mother wound, those mothers that had to give up their child, whatever the circumstances. Obviously, they think they're giving their child a better life. They're still giving their child away,
Hmm.
and there's a wound there. And I have dealt with that with my birth mother through the years, and even had a second rejection from her where I had to really step back through using this hypnotherapy and realize that she was traumatized too, and she's functioning from that place.
Hmm.
And it's getting, it's not my fault. I always thought, what's wrong with me? Why didn't you want me? But really, it's issues that she's dealing with. And that made all the difference in freeing me from a lot of the trauma I was feeling and a lot of the, all the things I was putting on myself. It really wasn't me.
Right.
Yeah.
There's a couple of things that I've learned listening to your podcast. And one of them is, I thought when I brought my kids home, like, oh my God, they're trusting me with these babies.
Yeah.
Right. It's like, at the time, I guess the books to get were what to expect when you're expecting, we're
Yep. I remember
reading
that
and
one.
right. But it shows that I think one of the points that you make in your podcast is that adoptive parents aren't aware
Yeah.
of these different phases that an adopted child is going to go through.
Hmm.
And they live in a lot of fear.
Yeah.
And I think that has just made me understand that part that you were saying earlier. It's not about Disneyland. It's not, you have to understand that these things are going to happen. And you call it the fog.
Yeah.
Can you talk
Yeah.
a little
Being in the
bit about
fog.
that?
So it's called the adoption fog, and I didn't learn this term until I dove into the community. But it's basically because it's pre-verbal and you don't remember, you question everything you're doing. Like, why can't I keep relationships? Why am I having abandonment issues, attachment issues? And you really just feel broken, especially if you do come from a good family. You're like, there's something wrong,
Mhm.
something is off, but you feel like you can't talk about it because for me, I was like, well, this is just normal teenager stuff that I'm feeling. Meanwhile, I'm going to the medicine cabinet and opening it to see if there's any pills I can take, to numb myself or maybe do worse. And adoptees are 4 times more likely to try and unalive themselves
Mhm.
than a non-adoptee. And I think those numbers are low. Because how many times do we really look at that when someone unalives themselves? Do we say were they adopted or a foster child or had, childhood trauma? There's probably so many that we
Mhm.
don't even know about. So I really think that number's higher. Um, so yeah, it can affect everything,
Yeah. And you
everything.
say something about when the fog is lifted. Is it like becoming aware that you're
Yes, it's that light bulb moment when it's like, oh, that's why I feel this way. That's why I do these things.
Mhm.
Um, and you society doesn't know about adoption trauma. So you really can't talk about it anywhere except in these communities. And that has really freed me to explore my trauma, which I didn't really even acknowledge because I had a
Right.
good adoption. So it's helped me heal tremendously by listening to other people's stories, which is why I have that on the podcast, because it's very validating and everybody's story is the same a lot, but then different. And there's always somebody out there like, oh, finally somebody that's telling my story.
Yeah.
I'm hearing my story now. I'm not weird. I'm not crazy for feeling these things. So that's why I do what I do.
Well, I think too, a lot of times on the podcast, I'll hear your guests talk about, I thought I was in this all by myself.
Mm-hmm.
Like it only happened to me.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
I
then,
still hear that all the time. All the time.
and then a community like yours is one where, like you said, oh, that's me.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I understand that more.
Yeah.
I know
Yeah.
I understand a lot more about myself listening to your episodes. Because, I wasn't adopted, but there are definite things around the mother wound
Mm-hmm.
that you
Yeah.
don't like. Like sometimes I'll feel like this, I want this attachment, I want this closeness, and it's not there.
Yeah.
And I'll think, is that me?
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you brought that up because we always think of trauma as the incident or an incident of something that happened. But really, the trauma happens when a need isn't met and we're not getting what we need to get.
Mhm,
So when
mhm.
you think about that mother wound, and the mothers are supposed to be a certain way when you think of a mother, and you're not getting those things, you're not getting love, you're not getting compassion, understanding, any of those things, that's an unmet need. And that's where the trauma really is rooted, in the unmet need.
Yeah. Well, it makes me think too that we have coping mechanisms around that, right?
Mhm.
For me, it was like overachievement, hoping that was going to make me worthy and that I would get that maternal bond. And I was pretty clear I had it from my dad. Um, but there was just this other side that I kept, trying to achieve, trying to do more and more to be worthy.
Yeah.
Um,
And that's a trauma response.
yeah.
That's a trauma response.
Yeah. So I think what it's sometimes when we listen to something, we can just reflect more on ourselves. And I think that that's what your podcast really helps us do. Now, let's talk about how you've taken that and moved that into somatic therapy and what that's about. And because I know that that's a great way to deal with trauma, whether you're adopted or not. But
Yeah.
talk a little bit about that.
Yeah. So, like you were saying, society's way of coping nowadays is go to the doctor. I have anxiety. I've got depression. I've, stress. And oh, here's this pill. You'll feel better tomorrow. Um, and all that does, and we all know, is it just covers up, really what's going on. And we do that because we need to get to work. We need to take care of our kids. We need a paycheck. We don't have time to not feel good. Um, so we just store that trauma in the body. And what happens, it's almost like taking a child that's having a tantrum and locking them upstairs in the attic. The child's still having the tantrum, but you go downstairs and you turn the TV on, you just turn the volume up a little bit louder so you don't hear the child screaming, but the child is still screaming. So, and it's going to scream louder and it's going to start ripping the door off. And, it's going to get your attention at some point through disease, mental illness, all
Mhm.
kinds of chronic conditions. And if you don't deal with the child, that's what happens. And the other thing is, a lot of people go, well, it's genetic. My mom had anxiety, my dad had depression. And that might be true, but I just want you to kind of look at it a different way. And I love this analogy that I heard. It's like inheriting your family home and you're moving in. And you move in and you notice there's a broken window, there's, a leak in the shower.
Right.
And you're like, why didn't my mom fix this? How come my grandma didn't fix this? That's generational trauma. So let's just plant that seed that, yeah, maybe your mom had it, maybe your grandma had it, but does that mean that you have to that you have to wear that label that you can't fix? Possibly that, so that when your child moves into this home, they don't have to deal with those
Mhm.
things. It's kind of a responsibility to heal ourselves at that point. Yeah, we can look at mom and say thanks, but when you're an adult, it's your responsibility to take to start healing yourself. So those are just some things analogies that I like to think about that help me when I feel like poor me or that I'm stuck. It's like I'm not stuck.
Yeah.
There's things. So with the somatic hypnotherapy, what happens is through a combination of hypnotherapy, meditation, inner journey work, and somatics, which is feeling what you're feeling in your body. With all those things combined, it accesses the subconscious mind. So where all these pre-verbal stresses and traumas are hidden. Um, it could even be something like, say you're wondering why you're self-sabotaging yourself in your business. I was doing that recently. I was discounting my prices. Every time I would
Mhm.
like tell my price list to somebody, I would feel this guilt, even though I knew what I was doing was this is a great modality. I know what it can do. It was something in me that I had to look at. Why was I discounting it as soon as I said the price?
Mhm.
And so going in somatically and figuring out that I was wearing labels that people had put on me of self-doubt and lies. They were lies. So
Mhm.
I was able to look at those and say, are those true? And if they are, maybe there's something I need to change. If not, why am I hanging on to this?
Right.
And so it was so freeing. So yeah, it goes into the subconscious mind. I think of the subconscious mind as like a storage unit where you've put all these boxes from the past, stuff your grandma had, you might pull a box out and say, I don't remember I even had this, do I want this or not? I don't need this anymore. Throw it out. It's not helping me anymore. Or, oh my gosh, this is grandma's wedding ring. I need to take this home with me. This is very sentimental. I need this. So that's kind of what we do with somatic mindful guided imagery. We clear clutter that's getting in the way of whatever it is that you're wanting to create. We connect you to powerful resources that are inside of you. And we integrate parts back that have been hidden because of stress, because we had to survive in the moment. And, that's what we had to do to survive. And now it's time for those parts to come home so that we can feel whole again.
Mm.
So, and it just depends. The sessions are all different for everyone. It depends on what you want to get out of the sessions, what your desire is, what you want to create. And your subconscious knows how to get that. And so
Yeah.
by the client actually leads the session. There's no script. They're all personalized to where the client goes in the journey. So,
Mm. And so, what kind of results? And just, I mean, I know that you said it kind of depends on the client, but
yeah, I've healed so much in my adoption trauma. I've grown my business through this, figuring out blocks that have kept me from growing that I didn't know were there. I've seen people that wanted to stop smoking and drinking done in 4 sessions. I've seen somebody with body dysmorphia, which I was thinking, how is this going to work? Because this is somatic. We're like feeling into the body, and you don't want to she didn't even want to take a deep breath into her belly because it would make her belly feel fat.
mm,
Um, and so I was like, I don't know. But in 3 sessions, she had a tremendous quantum leap in how she saw herself out in public and was able to go out without thinking everybody was looking at her in just 3 sessions. So really anything's possible. Things that, I mean, that I thought, oh no, this is going to work, you know,
well,
their
and it's
subconscious does. I mean, and that's the thing is I'm putting the tools in your hand. You can take these things home and you can do this yourself after you learn how to do some of these things. It's simple, it's gentle. Occasionally I have, when I'm working with myself, I'll be like, you know what, I really need to be facilitated for this. I'm not getting there. I need somebody to help me. So I will go get sessions. It's like, for me, I'm a practitioner. I practice this as well as give it to other people. It's like the hair club for men. I'm a customer too.
I think that makes us even better, right? When you are
Yeah.
practicing on and seeing it for yourself
Yeah. Yeah.
and how you've changed
Yeah. And
and
that's
how,
one
yeah,
thing I learned through this was um when you think, oh, I'm a practitioner, I gotta be healthy mentally, physically, I gotta have it all together. No, people want to see your authentic self and they want to know that you struggled too, but that you found a way to get through it. And how did you do that?
yeah,
And so you're your best advertisement a lot of times for that. You don't have to have it all together.
yeah.
That's crazy to think that. So that was one of my other obstacles that I had to get through
Well,
to get my
it has,
business going.
I got to tell you, I mean, over the 3 years that I've kind of known you, to see where you were in the beginning and how we just,
What am I doing?
yeah, we ran around in circles, right?
We did. We
And
did.
we just went, what do I do next? How does this work? And now the confidence that you have, I think for us too, it's confidence in knowing the blockage, like you said,
Mhm,
or the
mhm.
thing that we've got to overcome in the challenge
Yeah.
so that we can move forward and not make it so difficult for ourselves.
Yeah. And it could be something small, like something a teacher said to you in first grade that you don't really even remember or think, oh God, that was in first grade. That doesn't bother me. But that stuff gets stored in your brain and in your subconscious mind, and it really can affect you later in life. So even those little things will get brought up, and it just like, oh, I didn't even know that was a thing, get rid
Yeah.
of it.
Yeah.
And then you feel so much lighter. Yeah.
Well, I think one of the things your imagery does, because you've done some work with us in our pod squad, um, it helps us look and have a vision from where we want to be.
Hmm.
And if you're stuck, you can't see
Yeah.
that vision.
Yeah. Yeah. And your subconscious really wants to know what you want.
Yeah.
And it could be kind of in a general way. It doesn't have to be really detailed, but the more detailed you can get, the better. Um, but it could just be like, I just want to heal my relationship with my mother. I don't
Yeah.
know how to do that. Your subconscious knows. They're like, oh, I'm on the case. I got it. Let's go. I know what needs to happen.
Yeah.
Um,
I've been doing some reading and I understand that how we ask for that is super important because if we look at it like, you know, things with this relationship are really damaged. If we go the negative route, for example, and we only see the negativity of something, that will just keep materializing and showing up over and over again. But if we go down the path of this has the potential to be, to change it and to make it positive, all
yeah.
of a sudden things will start aligning, the universe will start aligning things for us. So it's more positive.
And I think the missing piece to that, which is universal, I'm finding, is as soon as you have that negative thought, you're told, you know, get to a more positive thought. Get your energy,
Mm-hmm.
you're vibrating down here and you want to be up here. You're not going to, you're manifesting this. But I think what needs to happen first is you need to honor that feeling
So true.
and validate it. There's a reason you're feeling that.
Yeah.
And if you don't do that, you're not going to get anything that you're trying to manifest.
Yeah.
You need to acknowledge and allow that feeling and validate it for yourself. And then you can move on to a more positive thought and say, you know what? Yeah, I'm here right now, but um,
Yeah.
this
This
can
will
this can
work
get
out
better.
or
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
And
yeah.
yeah. And it will be as it should or
And
whatever. Those are my favorite ones. Like it couldn't have been any different.
yeah,
And yeah, this is it.
yeah.
This is
That's the problem with a lot of the manifesting rules that are out there, is it kind of skips over that part. And if you don't do that part, I have found for myself,
Yeah.
nothing happens. Nothing
Yeah.
happens because
It,
there's resistance. I still have that resistance inside of me, whether
yeah.
I want to acknowledge it or not, it's there. And until I deal with that, then I can't
Yeah.
move forward.
So true. Got to do the work first.
Yeah,
So, my darling, we could go on for
I
like
know.
ever
I
talking.
know.
We just just feed off of each other in our energies. So, what would you tell your 20 something self today?
I would tell my 20 something self, you were born to do great things.
Mm,
Um, don't be afraid to make mistakes because that is telling you what you don't want and clarifying what you do want.
mm,
So don't be afraid to be yourself and be curious and make mistakes. Everything you have been through has not been wasted. Everything you've been through, the pain can be turned into superpower. So nothing's wasted. Nothing you've gone through, whether it's good or bad, is wasted. So I think that's
mm.
the main things I would say
I just
back
love the
then.
answers I hear to that question. It's, it's just so rich with
Yeah.
our lives and what we've gone through. So, is there anything we haven't covered that you would like to tell our listeners about and viewers? Because I know some people are watching.
I would just say, kind of going full circle, it's never too late to pivot. I don't care how old you are. It's never too late to live a life that you want to live. Um, and a lot of us sit there and wait for a hero to save us or pull us out of whatever. And what I want you to know is you are the hero of your own story. And you're the author of your own book. Take your pen back. I used to give my pen to everybody else to tell me what my story was going to be. Take your pen back, write the next chapter. It can change. Everything can change. So, yeah, just be your own hero. Take your pen
Mm,
back, be authentic, write your own story. It can be whatever you want it to be.
mm. You're one of my heroes. I love you.
I love
Totally.
you.
So, how can our listeners get in touch with you and how can they follow you?
Yeah. So Mind Your Own Karma, the podcast, Google it. It's everywhere on all the major platforms. MindYourOwnKarma.com is my website. I'm on Facebook and Instagram too. And if you know of an adoptee, birth mother, birth parent, I interview everyone, not just adoptees. So if you have a story to tell, get in touch with me and let's get your story on the podcast. If you know someone that is adopted and you just want to get a little bit more education, please do that. Just listen to a few episodes
Mhm.
and get a new perspective.
Yeah.
Somatic Mindful Guided Imagery, my website, somatichealingjourneys.com. Everything is on there, tons of information. You can DM me or email me if you have any questions about it. But yeah, check it out. It's pretty amazing.
Mm. Thank you so much, my darling, for coming on.
Yeah,
It
thank
was
you for
such a
having me.
special episode
This
for me.
was
So thanks.
fun. Thank you.
All right. Be back to you, listeners. Take care. Bye.
Thank you for listening today, and we sure hope you enjoyed this episode. If you did, please leave a comment wherever you listen to your podcasts. Tell a friend about us. Join our public Facebook group, Girl Take the Lead, or visit our website, girltaketheleadpod.com. We also have a YouTube channel where your subscription would be appreciated. Once you're on YouTube, search at Girl Take the Lead. And we're on YouTube Music, where you can see a video of this episode. Here are 3 takeaways from our conversation with Melissa. 1. The common sense view that adoptions are like a Disneyland happily ever after experience needs to be challenged, and the resulting trauma uncovered and accepted. 2. The mother wound or primal wound occurs when babies are missing the mother child bond or connection, which can affect many aspects of life going forward, both mentally and physically. Coming out of the fog is a term used in the adoptee community, defining the moment when an adoptee realizes the role adoption trauma has played in how they move and respond in their everyday life. And 3, somatic, mindful guided imagery helps people who are seeking relief from physical or psychological symptoms, stress, anxiety, trauma, find a sense of well being by accessing their subconscious mind, supporting them in discovering their natural ability to achieve healing and wholeness. Our next episode will continue to be about self-care and build on what we've heard from Melissa. It'll be a soundbite based on the book Worthy: How to Believe You Are Enough and Transform Your Life by Jamie Kern Lima. When you see the praise for this book, including those from Tony Robbins, Jay Shetty, Mel Robbins, and Glennon Doyle, we've got to take a look. You may remember Melissa and I talking about achieving and always trying to do more as a result of trauma. We'll take a closer look at that and dig into the book. So all you overachievers out there, hang on. Understanding is coming. Please join us again and talk to you soon. Bye.